Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another lesson of Grade 4 English First Additional Language. I am Taryn Curry. You can also call me Mrs. Curry or Mrs. C for short. And I will be your teacher today. So let's quickly look at what we did yesterday. We learned about subject, verb, and object. So we learned what each of those parts of a sentence means. So we learned that the subject is a noun, but it's the person or the thing that does the action, they do the verb. And the object is what the subject used to do the action. So once we learned the meanings, we were able to see where in a sentence each of them were. And remember, I taught you a little trick to look for the verb first, then the subject, and then your object. So let's look at today's lesson. Today we're going to focus on your listening skills. So I hope your ears are wide open, they're clean, and they're working because you're going to use them quite a lot. So I'm going to see what prior knowledge you have of today's topic. I will see what you know about what we're going to talk about today first. Then you might hear some new information. You might learn some new things today. Then you're going to use your listening skills to help you answer some of the questions at the end of our story today. Because I want to test and see how well you can remember information. So remember I said we're going to test your prior knowledge. So we're going to read through a short little story first, and then we're going to answer some questions. So if you want, you can read along with me. I will see on your camera if you are participating, because I do want you to practice your reading skills. Let's get started. One day, a snake slithered in the grade 4 classroom. Suddenly, one of the girls screamed and jumped onto her desk. "Snake! Snake!" she yelled. Soon there was a panic, and all the learners jumped on top of their desks. The snake looked around innocently. Every now and then it showed its forked tongue. So a quick question. Who knows why a snake shows its tongue? Does it do it because it wants to look scary? No, it does it because it actually uses its tongue to sense its surroundings. So like we use our hands and our eyes and our mouth and our ears to sense, the snake does the same thing. So he doesn't try and look scary and he wants to scare you. He actually uses it to help him. Okay, let's continue. The teacher and two boys from the class jumped on top of the snake and killed the snake. Everyone gave a huge sigh of relief as the boys took the snake out of the classroom. Okay, so a very nice short story. Now let's have a look at some of our questions together. So I hope from the story you can already guess what our topic for today is going to be about. So question number 1. I want to know what class of animal does this snake belong to? So I know in natural science you learn about different types of animals and you've learned that they belong to different groups. So the snake belongs to reptiles. Number 2, can you describe what a snake looks like? So those of you who have actually had a chance to see a snake in real life or to touch a snake, you might be able to describe it better. I have held a real snake, and this is what I think. They are long, they are smooth, and they are scary. I don't like snakes. Number 3, are all snakes poisonous? So if a snake bites you, will you die from that snake? Maybe of a heart attack, but no, not all snakes are poisonous. Some of them, if they bite you, you won't die. And my last question, I want to know, do you think they should have killed the snake? So do you think it was right that the teacher and the boys killed the snake? Or do you think it was a good thing? So this is your own answer. What do you think? Okay, let's move on. So now you're going to listen to another story. It's following the same topic, but remember that you're not going to have this story in front of you because it is a listening skill. So I'm going to read the story and I'm going to read the questions twice. So we'll go through the story first, then we'll go through the questions together, and then I'm going to read the story again, and then you're going to answer the questions. When you answer the questions, I do want you to answer it in full sentences. We don't want to be lazy. We want to try our best. So from the pictures, can you guess what exactly our story is going to be about? So there I've got 4 pictures from the story. And this story I got from eClassroom. They have lots of amazing resources. So our story today is all about reptiles. So you'll see there are lots of different types. So are you ready? Reptiles are animals such as turtles, tortoises, snakes, lizards, and several others. They are cold-blooded and they have backbones. Most reptiles lay eggs and their skin is covered with scales. They live on land and sea. So how would you recognize a reptile? The most common way to tell the difference between a reptile and any other creature is by their scales. Scales help to protect their bodies. And these scales can be hard or soft, large or small. So do you know what cold-blooded means? Warm-blooded mammals, like humans, have a body temperature that is controlled from the inside, and it is not warm, and it stays the same in all kinds of weather. Cold-blooded animals, like reptiles, do not warm their bodies from the inside. Their bodies are hot when they are in hot places and cold when they are in cold places. They have to lie in the sun to keep their bodies warm. So you'll often see reptiles laying in the sun. When they get too hot, the reptiles will go into the water and cool down. Reptiles are not the same as amphibians. Even though they look similar, amphibians, like frogs, use gills for breathing, while reptiles have lungs. Reptiles also lay their eggs on land. Reptiles are found on every continent except for Antarctica. All right, that's the end of our story. So let's quickly go through our questions, and then I'll go through the story for you one more time. So number 1, they want to know, how can you describe a reptile? They want you to use the words from the story. So there are 2 words, 2 or 3 words actually, that you can use to describe a reptile. Number 2, name 2 places where reptiles live. Number 3, why do reptiles have scales? Number 4, are reptiles and amphibians the same? So that's yes or no, and you must explain why. So if you say no, you must explain to me why, and if you say yes, you must explain why you say yes. Then number 5, in which continents do we find reptiles? Okay, so I'm going to read through the story again quickly, and then we can answer the questions. Reptiles are animals such as turtles, tortoises, lizards, and several others. They are cold-blooded and they have backbones. Most reptiles lay their eggs and their skin is covered with scales. They live on land and in the sea. How would you recognize a reptile? Well, the most common way to tell the difference between a reptile from any other creature is by their scales. Scales are there to protect their bodies, and these scales can be hard or soft, large or small. Do you know what cold-blooded means? Warm-blooded mammals, like humans, have body temperature that is controlled from the inside, and it stays the same in all kinds of weather. Cold-blooded animals, like reptiles, do not warm their bodies from the inside. They have to lie in the sun to keep their bodies warm. So you'll often see reptiles lying in the sun, and when they get too hot, reptiles will go into the water to cool down. Reptiles are not the same as amphibians. Even though they look similar, amphibians, like frogs, use their gills for breathing, while reptiles have lungs. Reptiles lay eggs on land. Reptiles are found on every continent except for Antarctica. Right, now you're going to answer the questions for me. So on your piece of paper, I want you to answer questions 1 to 5, please. Remember, using full sentences, and then I want to go through the answers with you. So quickly, answer question 1 for me. How can we describe a reptile? Remember, use the words from the story. So I said there were 2 or 3 that we can use. So here you can just use the separate words. All right, so let's look at number 1. So I found cold-blooded and scaly. You could also say they have a backbone. Number 2, name 2 places where reptiles live. So there were 2 places I mentioned. where you'll find reptiles in the world? So the answer is land and sea. Because remember, I said that they live on the land and in the sea. Number 3, why do reptiles have scales? So what was the purpose? It is to protect them. Number 4, are reptiles and amphibians the same? So remember, yes or no, and explain why. So we said, no, amphibians use gills and reptiles use lungs to breathe. So even though they do swim in the water, our amphibians have gills like fish, so they're able to breathe under the water, but our crocodiles have to come up for oxygen. Number 5, in which continent do we find reptiles? So remember the map. So we said on every continent except for Antarctica, because it's way too cold for them to live there. Great job. So what I'd like for you to do for homework is you're going to read this poem. So you'll see this is another worksheet that I got from eClassroom. So you're going to read this poem for me and practice it, please. Then you're going to perform this poem for me on my Flipgrid. And I want you to try and use different accents for the different groups of animals, because you'll see it's about the snake, the lizard, and the crocodile. So make it nice and interesting. I want to be amazed by your guys' reading skills. So you will access the Africa Teen Geeks website. You'll go scroll down and you'll see there is a link for grade 4. When you click on that, you'll go into a folder. So I will show you on the next slide how the page will look. When you go into the folder and you find grade 4 English, you'll see there is a poem there. So I want you to practice reading the poem. You're going to use different voices for the animals, because you'll see there are 3 different types. When you are confident enough, you're going to go onto Flipgrid, and I want you to record yourself reading it for me, because I want to see how good your reading skills are. So remember, my lockdown code is lockdown. You're going to click the green plus, then you can start recording. So when you go onto Africa Teen Geeks website, I want you to click on the lockdown eSchool tab on top. So it'll take you to this page. Then you're going to scroll down and you're going to see there'll be a list like this. So you're going to click on grade 4 documents. Once you've opened that, you'll see the grade 4 English folder. Open that and you'll find where it says poem on the worksheet. So you'll be able to view it, you can download it, and then you can practice. So please join me for tomorrow, where we're going to look at some reading and writing. So we're going to learn more about reptiles. It will be a comprehension, so there will be answers for, there will be questions for this comprehension. And then I'm going to teach you how to write a summary. Thanks for joining, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.